Hey everyone, just wanted to quickly give you an overview of the synthesis paper. I hope that most of you have started, or even thought about starting the synthesis paper, as it is due April 5th by 10 p.m. To give you some context, that's Sunday, so that's, I think, only a couple of days for you to work, and if you wanted to send me a draft, you can do that as well. But the synthesis paper is unique. I feel a lot of the papers in this class are unique in that it gives you an opportunity to really flex your academic muscles. Some people are not so pleased with that because they are accustomed to a different type of writing. Not to say that it is a lesser writing, it is just simply different. But the goal of the synthesis paper is to do two things, because it's the synthesis and critique paper, and those are two components, both worth 20 points each. A quick disclaimer with the case study paper, it seems as though a lot of people focused on almost exclusively the analysis and not so much on the recommendations, even though they were both 20 points each. For this one, again, synthesis, 20 points, critique, 20 points, writing, 10 points, okay? So please make sure as you're going through this, don't focus exclusively on the synthesis, don't focus exclusively on the critique. Both of them, if it is a 4 to 5 page double-spaced paper, maybe 2 pages dedicated to each of them, okay? Just general rules. Some of you are offended that I even had to say that. I just want to get it out there, so if I come across it, we have everything settled. So the synthesis paper is the goal of it is really to try to integrate information that you have read from this class in addition to 2 outside sources that are within the same realm of conversation. So the most recent chapter, I'll use this as an example, the most recent chapter we talked about was health communication. We had 3 articles. You would just choose 2 of these 3. We had the Lowe and Purnam article, we had the Wright and Bell article, and I wrote the third one, and the Ewan, of course, the Ewan article. Okay, so you would choose 2 of those articles, and you would synthesize information from those articles. What was the main point of these articles? What were the major takeaways regarding health communication? Okay, now that's not to say that you would say the Ewan article said this, and you talk about that for a couple sentences, and the Wright and Bell article said this. No, I don't want you to simply say Article 1 said this, Article 2 said this, the 2 outside sources said this and this. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to connect all of these pieces. What were the overlaps? Think about it in terms of a Venn diagram. If we have health communication here, we have the Ewan article here, and we have the Wright and Bell article here, what you should do is focus on this middle piece that overlaps and connects all of it. What does all the information say in conjunction with each other? Because we can't think about this in terms of one article and a second article. We have to think about this in terms of what do all of these articles that I've chose so far, 2 from the class readings, 2 from outside readings, scholarly, peer-reviewed, all that jazz. What do all of those have in common? What is the coalescence of all of those ideas? Okay, so synthesize that. Bring to the surface, what is it that what are the conclusions that we can really draw about these articles? What is the information, the main takeaways that we can take away from that information, okay? So that's the first part, synthesis. Take the information, condense it together, make it coalesce, and make sense with each other. The second part, and this is the second part of the title of the paper, is the critique. Most of you will have some questions left over after you've read these articles or after you've written the first half of your paper. If we're talking about health communication and the articles that you selected, in addition to the articles that we talked about here, don't give us full disclaimer as to how. So let's take the Wright and Bell article. They talk about this idea of social support within groups on the internet, right? What if during that time when you were reading that article and you were reading the Lowe and Purnam article and you found 2 other articles, what if you were sitting there thinking about these groups online and went, I wonder what happens if the groups online go to face-to-face interactions, or what happens if, let's say, Alcoholics Anonymous, they met in person and then they had an online resource to provide social support. I don't think I saw any of that in the articles that I reviewed. Okay, so those are the type of questions that really make a strong argument for the critique of these articles. I don't need you to critique the methodology or the way that they ran the statistical analyses. No, I need you to critique the main ideas, the main takeaways that were presented by the authors, by the pieces that they wrote. What were some of the underlying questions that you thought, something's really lacking in this research? And pick 2 or 3 of those, okay? Most cases, what we want you to do is you want to make sure that you are finding information that is pertinent to all of the articles. Now, it might be the case that your question is somewhat answered in one, but the other 3 completely lock it out. That might be an area for you to talk about a critique. A common critique that a lot of people will use is the notion that the articles are old. Okay, so the Wright and Bell article is from 2003. That is 12 years old at this point, or somewhere in that range. I'm not sure at what time of the year it was published, in 2003. But that isn't really a very valid argument because they're focusing on what's happening in 2003. But the reason we use it now is there are a lot of theoretical implications. There are a lot of arguments that still ring true today. Okay, so I would avoid talking about age as the major concern for this. Exceptions to that rule can be if you find an article that talks about social media and how support groups, when talking about health communication, are not as valuable on Facebook from, let's say, 2008. Could be different now because maybe Facebook has a new feature that I'm not aware of that allows people to foster these relationships online with health communication. Again, I want you to really focus on the shortcomings or maybe oversights of these articles and talk about what is the best way to approach these articles moving forward. Okay? So again, part 1, hopefully an introduction. This is what we're going to be talking about. Then the synthesis. This is what all the literature says about health communication, online communities. You can talk about political communication. Pick one and use those articles from class. Use 2 articles from outside, peer-reviewed, scholarly. Bridge all of those gaps. Link them all together. And then after the synthesis, move on to the critique. This is what was said. They had really great arguments. This is sort of the state-of-the-art of health communication. But I noticed that 1, 2, and 3, X, Y, and Z, rhyming on 10, are really the issues that I thought at the end, why didn't they think about it from this scope? Why didn't they think about it from this theoretical perspective? Okay, and then after all that, a conclusion, wrap it all up, put a little bow tie on it, and send it out. So if you have any questions about the synthesis and critique paper, let me know. Other than that, we have the exam also due. I sent an email with the actual time for all of that. So, and additionally, on the D2L page under content, there is a study guide if you so choose. So go ahead and look at that. And if you have any questions with the synthesis or the exam or anything else related to the class, let me know. Okay, thanks.